I'm Reuben and I attend High Rock Cambridge.
I'm Doug Witt, and I also attend High Rock Cambridge.
And we're here to talk today about how we've seen God's grace in our lives through our small group. So I grew up in the Mennonite Anabaptist tradition. It's a peace tradition, so there was a really strong emphasis on peace and not going to war, a really strong trend of Christian pacifism. And I grew up in that tradition, believing that, Christians shouldn't kill really for any reason. I knew other Christians believed differently, but I thought we sort of got that one right. And to an extent, I kind of still do believe that.
Right now, I work in biotechnology, but the first 7 years of my professional career I spent serving in the U.S. military, where I was a submarine officer on the USS Alabama.
And then we started attending the same small group when small group started sort of in September of 2022. When I was entering into small group, it was an all men's group, which for me was new. And I wasn't sure how I felt about that. I think my experience with all male spaces has not always been one of fitting in very well. Knowing that Doug was in the military, I was sort of like, oh, is this going to be another sort of macho men's group?
So I think I knew that there was this large difference between where we were coming from, but I also very clearly could see the way that God was at work in Reuben's life and really working through everything in his life with God. And I think I was excited that he joined the group, knowing that that's how he was living his life.
It's been really great to be able to study the scriptures together. We're going over the book of Hebrews, which is this wonderful sort of argument for the supremacy of Christ as our high priest and our sacrifice for us, and really just exploring the grace of God. And it's been wonderful to come together in our group. Doug and I, having very different understandings in this aspect of Christian life. But to understand that God's grace is so sufficient and generous, it can handle our differences. The other aspect of our small group is spending a significant time of sharing just how our lives are going, and as Doug mentioned, like the joys and pains of life, and praying for one another. We become people who are seeking God together and seeking the good of the other, and desiring God to be revealed in one another's lives.
Right, and here you have Reuben, who's quite ardently pacifist and has come to that place from a deep sense of conviction. Right, that's very deeply scripturally and spiritually rooted for him. And I think I could say the same about my own position regarding my own service. I don't think either one of us has convinced each other in terms of our positions on this. I think really we probably remain just as rooted as we ever were to our original convictions. But what I think we do see is a bigger picture of God's grace, right? That God's grace encompasses so many people with perspectives different from our own. I hope God will allow us to keep being explicit with what our differences are and our areas of hurt and pain. If you think about God's grace, it's meaningless outside of some sort of context. So when we're able to be in community with one another, name our differences, and then also share vulnerably about our pain and the things that we struggle with, that's where God's grace shows up. So I hope that will continue to happen.